Welcome everybody to another treacherous episode of Lockdown 23 in 1. That's right, today we're traveling to a state, if you were to ask me, for 2024 is possibly the most dangerous place to be doing time at. Georgia! Georgia! That's right, their prisons are falling apart and inmates are losing their lives left and right. You got gangs, drones flying in, contraband, dirty officers, even down to the wardens are being arrested for taking part in these shenanigans. It's a dirty game, especially in the Georgia prison system, but today we're going to be focusing on one prison, Valdosta State Prison. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And in today's article, we're going to be speaking about 4 inmates just this year, the first 6 months, that have been killed in that prison. Not to mention one individual was gruesomely taken out by 11 other inmates. So as always, before we get into it, if you enjoy this type of content, all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Now before we get into the story, let's speak a little bit about the layout of this prison. Valdosta State Prison consists of 10 general population units with 500 beds, 6 mental health units with 264 beds, 25 isolation beds, 12 acute care unit beds, and 4 crisis stabilization units. The annex contains 554 general population beds. Of those beds, 100 are designated to the Residential Substance Abuse Center beds. The facility also houses a special management unit, also known as SMU, and has a tactical squad and canine unit, also a CERT team, with 2 different types of housing units, open dormitory and single cells. Now that we got a better idea of the layout of the prison, let's jump into the article. It says the realities at Valdosta State Prison, including allegations of widespread corruption and a stunning lack of officers, reveal how Georgia's troubled prison system is now spiraling out of control. Since the first of the year at Valdosta, the warden has been fired for misconduct, and other officers have been fired or arrested on charges of corruption on the job. Moreover, as of April, 80% of the correctional officer positions were vacant. At a prison that houses GDC's highest percentage of prisoners who are both gang members and or have mental health issues. While violence and gross understaffing plagued the entire Georgia prison system, the events this year at Valdosta have taken the crisis to a new level. There's been 4 killings so far this year, after the prison experienced just 2 homicides in all of 2023, 2 in 2022, and 0 for 2021. And that's according to death certificate data on GDC records. The 2024 victims are Rufus Lane, strangled to death in January, Ricky Harris, stabbed at least 30 times in the neck and face with ink pens in February, Melvin Towns was stabbed to death with a homemade weapon in April, and Mr. Shane Griffith. We're going to get more into his story here in a second. The way that he went out is absolutely unbelievable. It says only one other Georgia Department of Corrections facility, and we've covered this place a couple times, Macon State Prison, appears to have had 4 homicides in the first 6 months of this year as well. Even in the Georgia prison system, where hundreds of correctional officers and other employees have faced criminal charges for contraband and other offenses, Valdosta stands out for its disorder and corruption. At least a dozen officers have been fired or arrested since January, including the warden, Ralph Shropshire. Hopefully I pronounced that one right. He was named warden in March of 2023, taking over the job after serving as a deputy warden for the previous 4 years. Since his firing in July, the GDC has declined to reveal the reasons behind it. All it says is that he's terminated due to misconduct. The GDC is unable to elaborate on his dismissal because those details remain part of an open investigation. Of course it does. The warden's firing came after the arrest earlier this year of 5 Valdosta State Prison employees who were accused of helping an inmate move drugs money as part of a massive contraband scheme. The arrests were made following a large multi-prison investigation by the GDC dubbed Operation Skyhawk that implicated another Valdosta inmate who authorities alleged were coordinating a scheme to use drones to deliver contraband to prisons in Georgia. Another officer at Valdosta, Lyric Oliver, resigned in March and now faces criminal charges. Oliver, who held the rank lieutenant, was arrested in June after an investigation by the GDC found she had improper dealings with an inmate. Oliver is charged with 2 crimes, violating her oath as an officer and trading with inmates, after allegedly receiving 3 payments totaling $1,800 and sending another inmate videos of herself committing sexual acts. Oliver could not be reached for comment. Of course she couldn't. The arrests and firings at Valdosta have diminished and tainted the workforce that already was operating at staffing levels that make it virtually impossible to supervise the inmate population. As of April, GDC data shows that 43 of 222 correctional officer positions were filled. Only 43 out of the 222. That's unreal. And you know, other prisons, especially in Alabama, it's even less. But now that we got a little bit more detail of these inmates that are losing their life in prison, not to mention all the dirty staff, let's speak about one inmate in particular, Shane Griffith. He entered the prison system in December 2022 to serve a 23-month sentence for a series of probation violations. A short timer, 23 months, that's less than 2 years. With good time, it's probably like a year and a half. Most people, when they get that kind of sentence, are like, all right, I'll lay it down, man, get my weight back up and get back in the mix. But Shane probably had no idea what was coming his way. Or maybe he did. I'll break that down here at the end. It says the 32-year-old resident of Jasper County, an avid hunter and fisherman, and a fan of the Georgia Bulldogs, was just 6 months from his release date when he was killed. Shane's mother, Tanya, said her son died the day after moving to Valdosta State Prison from Rutledge State Prison in Columbus. So this dude just gets there, and keep in mind, he was placed in an open dorm. Unlike that guy that was stabbed 30 times in the neck and head, he was killed by his cellmate. Remember, there's 2 different types of housing in this prison. Open dorm, which is a big open area with about 100 bunks in it. And you got single cells, probably with 2-man bunks. But this guy gets into the open dorm right after being shipped there, probably puts his bed together. Next thing you know, he's dead. How does this happen and why? It's going to break down in the article how he went out, but I'm going to give you my 2 cents. I can't stamp it on why he went out. Upon moving to the new prison, he wanted to be in protective custody instead of general population because of concerns about his safety, he said. But look, a lot of places, a lot of prisons, they don't have protective custody like you might think. It's just the hole, and it's usually designed for people that are getting in trouble or high-ranking gang members. And if it's overcrowded in that hole or PC unit, whatever you want to call it, and your situation doesn't seem to be that important, you're not going there. You're going to be sitting in that general population, that pod, that dorm, whichever one. His mother says that the system should listen to the inmates if they're being threatened, and the non-violent ones on probation violations should not be sent to a maximum security prison. His mother also says, I cannot see how a physical attack like this took place for so long. The beating of Shane Griffith started at 11 on the night of May 29th and lasted until 5:30 the next morning. Just imagine this. Look, I've lived in a dorm setting in prison. Like I said, it's like a big hangar with a bunch of bunks. Everybody sees everything going on. And for this guy to have been tortured and beat from 11 at night till 5:30 in the morning goes to show you that nobody was watching those security cameras. The prisons I seen, man, if you light up a cigarette, chances are they're going to zoom in on the cherry. And you're going to Himtown, right? So for something like this to take place for so long, throughout the night with nobody being caught, blows my mind. Wedged between 2 bunks, Shane Griffith had nowhere to run and no one to turn to for help as 11 other inmates at Valdosta State Prison assaulted him. He was punched, kicked, stomped, beaten with poles and shoes, whipped with a belt and burned. 11 against 1 for hours in a dorm with everybody probably listening and watching this man cry out for help. The beating left Griffith with blunt force trauma throughout his whole body and made him at least the 4th prisoner killed this year at Valdosta State Prison, putting it among the state's deadliest in the system. Arrest warrants and other documents describe how Griffith, in prison for probation violation and just months away from being released, was unmercifully attacked in open barrack-style dorm. One of his attackers is alleged to have used a wooden pole and a burning object. Another used a pair of shoes in his fists. At times during the attack, men stood or sat on Griffith's chest as the beating went on, according to the warrants that cite video surveillance. So the cameras are there and they're working. There's just no CO watching. Now it's time for my 2 cents on why he was beaten as soon as he got to that prison. It doesn't mention the motive or anything along those lines in the article, but if I were to guess, he either did something in the prison that he was just transferred from, and the inmates spread word to the prison he was going to handle business when he landed. But I don't think that's the case. I think this is. Somehow, when he landed in that dorm, the inmates knew exactly what he was in there for. Remember, he was in there for a probation violation, only sentenced to 23 months. But what was he on probation for? It stemmed from a case in which he and a girlfriend allowed minors to be present when they had sex. Now, if I were to bet it all, including my house and dog, I'd say that that's the reason why he was tortured and beat to death. Some places, man, when they find out you got some filthy, naughty paperwork, it'd be better for you to be sentenced to death. At least you can relax on death row. Crazy world inside the state penitentiary, especially in Georgia. But I could go into more details on the other individuals that lost their life, like Mr. Towns, 37. He was serving a 6-month sentence for violating his probation. 6 months on a drug conviction from Fulton County. He was actually sentenced to do his time in the county, if permissible. But they ended up sending him to prison. And he was killed 12 days before his release. Imagine getting sentenced to 6 dusty months. You didn't even bring back a fresh crime, just a violation. Probably a dirty urine. Go back to prison and get killed right before you go home, man. I cannot fathom that. You know what I mean? Inmates are going to be mad simply because you're in there to begin with? Hold on. You got 6 months? Why are they putting you in here in my cell? I got fucking 40 years. Are these guys playing with me? Next thing you know, there's only one inmate coming out during count. But that's a wrap for today's closer look into the Georgia prison system. In particular, Valdosta State Prison. Very sad what's going on in these prisons, man. And honestly, I don't see how they're gonna fix it. It's looking like it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Prayers of safety to all the inmates across the country that's really trying to change their life around. Anyway, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. I got plenty more content coming your way, including on my second channel. I'll be dropping part 2 to day 1 on the run. Survival at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. And when I'm on the run, I ain't gonna be camping all the time. I might just sleep the night away in a storage unit. Who knows? So yeah, be on the lookout for all that survival stuff over there. And reactions to other videos other than prison-related content. That stays over here. In the meantime, though, as always, y'all be easy, be safe, and more importantly than anything, stay free.